In Vancouver at the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium, we're joined by Keith Neumeyer, President and CEO of First Majestic Silver Corp, and also Chairman of First Mining Finance. Keith, thank you for being with us.
Well, it's my pleasure, Rachel.
Yeah, so I actually invited you here because I want to ask you why you're all in for silver and gold.
The sector itself is very cyclical, and one thing I've proven, I think, in my career over 35 years is that I'm a good buyer. I put First Quantum together in the early 90s and First Majestic together in the early 2000s, and just recently I put First Mining Finance together right at the depths of the market. You know, we're going into another long-term bull market in gold and silver, and this is the time I think that it's time to load up on good quality companies.
And in January of last year, 2016, silver price hit a low, but you're saying that we're on trend for a high. Can you give us some comments on that?
Well, you know, I'm a big believer in supply-demand fundamentals, and you know, we're consuming more silver than we ever have as a human race, and mine supply is actually dropping. Three years in a row. I love talking about silver. You know, we couldn't do this interview without silver. You know, you couldn't drive to work. Your computer systems, the electrical grid, nothing would work without silver. So it's a very strategic metal. It's very necessary in the day-to-day life of the human race. And as we get off oil and gas going forward, which is a ball that's obviously rolling, and as we go electric, we're going to require lots more silver. And I think it's a very good time for investors to be looking in the silver space.
And that reminds me of a chart you had in a presentation just yesterday of you know, the top companies in the world, the tech companies can't function without the rocks that you're producing. What are your comments on the fact that the natural resource market is at a bottom, but how can we as investors prepare for a new high?
I'm glad you brought that particular slide up, because you know the top 50 mining companies in the world actually are equal to the market cap of Apple. And you think about those 50 mining companies, what they actually supply to the human race. You know, that's all the copper, all the lead, all the zinc, you know, all the silver that we need on a daily basis to survive. And companies like Apple wouldn't even exist without these 50 mining companies. And yet, you know, they're equally valued, which in my view is a complete disconnect. Well, right now, you know, of course, everyone's loving the NASDAQ reaching new highs on a daily basis. And, you know, there's a lot of institutions out there, a lot of investors out there making a lot of money. But, you know, for my money, I wouldn't be chasing that market. You know, I'm a contrarian, and I would be buying where you know no one else wants to own.
Right. So are you saying that right now is a great entry point for investors?
Right. Yeah. Because you know no one wants to own the mining space right now, and that's for my money. That's where I like to be.
Gotcha. Now there is an idea that, and you say it's nonsense, that high interest rates actually bring gold down. Why do you say it's nonsense?
Well, that's what the headlines want to tell you, right? So you know it's you know, as interest rates go up, for some reason the headlines or the, you know who you know the media wants to tell the investors to stay away from precious metals. But you know, if you go back to 1975, and again I had quite an interesting chart in my presentation yesterday that showed quite clearly that as interest rates go up, gold can go up as well.
Right.
And I think we're going into a period of time where interest rates will be going higher.
All right. Now, you also mentioned that the next financial crisis we will encounter will be worse than the last one we've had. Why do you say that, and how are you preparing yourself?
Well, I think I made it quite clear how I'm doing it. You know,
Investing in silver and gold.
I'm all in silver and gold, so that's how I think investors, you know, should be looking at this industry, or why investors should be looking at this industry. So why do I think it's going to be worse? Because the banks and the governments haven't learned anything. The system is much more leveraged today than it was back in 07, 08. There's a lot more debt out there, and the economy's not doing particularly well.
Right.
You never know what catalyst it's going to be that tips the system over. You know, last go around it was, you know, the mortgage industry. You know, what was the catalyst that drove the market down, and then it could be that again. It could be another industry. Who knows? But I'm pretty confident that it will happen. I look at this point in time where we are in the financial markets very similar to 2001, 2002. You know, the NASDAQ hit an all-time high in March of 2000, and over the next 4 to 5 years, the market went down by 50%. We'll be there all over again.
Gotcha.
But you just don't know when it's going to happen. It could be tomorrow. It could be a year from now. But when these major changes occur, it's too late. Because the change happens so suddenly, it leaves investors behind. So investors need to be patient. They need to pick good quality companies in this space, in the gold and silver space, and just be patient.
Right. Now, there are many speakers here at this conference that we're all learning from, but is there a particular advice that you've taken in your career that you'd like to mention here on camera?
Well, I think patience. It takes a long time to build a big company, and I built a couple of billion-dollar companies already, and hopefully First Mining Finance will be my
I believe it's your third. Yeah.
Well, it's not a billion-dollar company yet. It's about 300 million. So,
right.
So we'll see if I'm successful doing it a third time. And it's tough to be an investor in that environment because it takes really good 3, 4, 5 years to build a successful business,
right.
and unfortunately, some investors don't have that patience.
Gotcha. Now, this reminds me of a question that Rick Rule actually asked to a panel yesterday. He said, what is one mistake that you've made in your career that you learned from or that you don't want to repeat? Do you have one?
Probably listening to other people.
That was your mistake, you're saying?
Right.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Stubbornness and focus would be the opposite of that. So sticking to your guns and believing in yourself and staying very focused on your objective or your goals.
All right. Well, Keith, thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you.
To learn from more experts and CEOs like Keith, make sure you watch more videos on SmallCapPower.com.